Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor. Thank you for letting us speak to you this evening. My name is Kelly Reed, and I was born and raised in Whittier, and I have lived in Brea for 22 years. My dad, up there with my family, was an LA County Fire Department captain for over 30 years and fought wildland fires all over Southern California. Fear for me as a kid was that my dad could be hurt or worse, killed in the line of duty. My mom and I lived and breathed fire season, which back then actually was a season. I think we can agree that something about our weather has changed. Just last week we experienced a red flag warning, 80-degree days, Santa Ana winds in the dead of winter. Portions of Pacific Palisades and Glendora went up in flames. We are told and can see that there is no longer a fire season. Unlike my childhood, fires can now happen at any time. Choosing to live in Olinda Village may seem strange knowing my personal fire history, but we have topography on our side. Olinda Village was built in a natural depression, and although we have some homes near ridgelines, until the Freeway Complex Fire, almost 100 years of record keeping show that it had never burned, even before homes were built there. Fire scientists recently demonstrated that a site's fire history is more important than its fuel in determining the risk. If it has burned before, it will burn again, and Madrona has burned 4 times in the last 30 years. The EIR defines Madrona project as, quote, an urban ridgetop development in a large, undeveloped wildland urban interface within a known historic fire corridor, end quote. The word urban suggests that Madrona is contiguous with other urban land uses. Seriously? It is a development that's 100% surrounded by wildland over which Madrona will have zero control. What is the wildland urban interface? It is an area where homes are built next to wildlands. The wildland urban interface fires destroy 3,000 homes per year and cost our country $14 billion to fight annually. The top 8 wildland fires in California since 1960 have occurred since 2000. The fire siege of 2003 lasted 2 weeks, and 14 fires destroyed 3,700 homes. The fire siege of 2007 was a total of 17 large fires that burned over 2,500 homes in San Diego County alone. What is disturbing is that the tremendous growth of houses being built in the wildland urban interface is directly correlated to the increase in fire frequency and losses of homes. Madrona increases Brea's wildland urban interface. Madrona will be built to allow residents to shelter in place if necessary. On page C33 of the final EIR, and I quote, if the neighborhood cannot be evacuated before the fire front impacts the evacuation routes, the residents will be sheltered in place when the community is considered to be defendable and the homes are hardened to current code standards, end quote. In 2009, you may remember that 173 people were lost in Australia when residents taught how to shelter in place panicked. Due to this horrendous tragedy, the concept of shelter in place is being reevaluated. The final EIR goes on to say that Olinda Village will be evacuated first. They claim that these strategies would minimize panic. The naivete of that plan is astonishing. If it were you and your family and you were living in Madrona, would you wait your turn to get out of harm's way? It's when the conditions are most dangerous and fear is heightened that residents will try to evacuate. Situations like this create panic and put residents and fire personnel at even greater risk. The fire protection plan for Madrona never mentions the word smoke, as if they could magically avoid what smoke damage can do. During a wildfire event, getting out of Madrona is risky at best, from both exits. According to the LA County Fire Chief, fire burns 16 times faster uphill than down. Hence, homes on ridgetops are much more at risk. Residents will need to decide quickly to get off the ridgetop safely and then choose the best possible exit. Let me illustrate one scary scenario for you. This exact presented to the Brea City Council mere weeks before the 2008 Freeway Complex Fire, and it accurately predicted how fire moved and behaved on that day. With Santa Ana winds, low humidity, and high temperatures, all it takes is one spark. With winds, flames move quickly. In the Freeway Complex Fire, the Orange County Fire Authority reported that the fire moved the length of 14 football fields in 1 minute. You cannot outrun or outdrive a fire moving at that speed. Embers are insidious, quickly starting new spot fires up to a mile ahead of the flame front. The road into Madrona is through a narrow, high-walled canyon. During the Freeway Complex Fire, this entrance was engulfed in flames and would have cut off the entire Madrona community from Carbon Canyon Road. The secondary emergency exit funnels Madrona onto Olinda Drive and through Olinda Village. Olinda Drive itself is a curvy, steep, two-lane road with grades upwards of 15%, well above what would be allowed under today's standards. After unlocking 2 security gates, one at the Madrona boundary and one at the current location owned by State Parks, Madrona evacuees will be sharing this road with Olinda Village residents exiting. Emergency vehicles will be entering in the opposite direction. Add smoke, darkness, and panic, and this is a recipe for disaster. And to make matters worse, during the Freeway Complex Fire, this backup access was also engulfed in flames. What we said could happen did happen. We were lucky that no one lost their life in this fire. Thankfully, this dangerous project had not yet been built. Here are a few things that we experienced during the Freeway Complex Fire. Fires occurring in Santa Ana wind conditions stretch local resources very thin. We depend on fire resources and personnel from all over the state that are often unfamiliar with the area. The Freeway Complex Fire started after days of fire emergencies in other parts of Southern California, and crews and equipment had already been deployed. When we needed coverage on November the 15th, not one police or fire vehicle was present in Olinda Village. This was unprecedented. We normally would have had a dozen fire engines at the ready in case the fire had come our way. A village resident actually called 911 and ended up waiting on the phone until a promise of assistance was given. She actually called twice. Crews eventually assigned to Olinda Village did not know our area, and they were not given any maps. Had it not been for our neighbors who stayed behind to try to defend their own homes in the village, firemen would not have known where to go. One resident actually had to point out fire hydrants to some of the firemen and had to tell them how to get to the other side of the village. During the Freeway Complex Fire, even though firefighters were on the scene, one house was lost on Olinda Drive in a matter of seconds. The wind dictated what would happen that night, and the fire was out of human control. So what can be controlled during a major fire event? How houses are built. That can be controlled. Every house in Brea was built to the current standard and code of their time. Madrona will be no different. The latest materials and the current building codes will be used to ensure that the houses are as safe as possible, but no one can say that those homes will be fireproof. And so much is out of human control when it comes to fire. And although firefighting technique has been honed to a science, every firefighter I know has been humbled by the ferocity of fire and has watched in vain as all their hard work has gone up in flames. What cannot be controlled? A lot of things. When, where, and how a fire starts. Wind direction and wind speed, and the frequent changes in both. Severity of drought conditions on vegetation. Water access and availability. Response times. Firefighting manpower and resources. Access to burning areas. Orderly evacuations by residents. And human error. What if someone left firewood outside their door? What if someone left a window open or their flue open? What if they have dead or dying vegetation in their yards? The Freeway Complex Fire traumatized a region. Rather than throw our hands up in despair, the Freeway Complex Fire call was a wake-up call for Brea's Olinda Village residents. We joined the existing Carbon Canyon Fire Safe Council. We created our own community emergency response team, which has now become an award-winning CERT team. Several people are trained to be ham radio operators. We help plan and host fire safe fairs. We have a weather station in the state park, and we communicate with each other across the canyon. What we are unclear about is whether or not City of Brea decision makers have awakened to the dangers that face our city, not only from future fire events, but the inevitable risks inherent in projects like Madrona. Right after the fire in 2008, Brea proposed shutting down the fire station in Olinda Village. Thankfully, the restructuring with Fullerton and the outcry from many people throughout Brea not only saved the station, but actually enhanced it. And for that, we are grateful. But if you approve Madrona, we will know that you did not fully comprehend the lessons of the Freeway Complex Fire. Adding more houses to Brea's wildland urban interface is dangerous and irresponsible. We urge you to say yes to the appeal and no to Madrona, because inevitable firestorms and the resulting damage are out of your control.